Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good day to everyone who watched this video. So my name is Alia Nushahada binti Muhammad Zamri with my metric number B22EC0013, and I'm a third year student in Computer Network and Security. So this video will be all of the information gathered for my PSM1, which is Suspicious Transaction Detection Model for anti-money laundering based on machine learning techniques. So, my respected supervisor is Technologist Dr. Muhammad Zamri bin Osman. Respected first evaluator is Professor Madya Dr. Anazida Zainal, and my second respected evaluator is Dr. Bandar Ali Salih Arimi. So next is the table of content, which is everything that I will talk throughout this video. So the first one is the introduction, second is the problem background, third is research questions, the fourth one will be research objectives, and then we have scopes, aim, contribution. Number 8 is proposed solutions, number 9 is machine learning techniques, number 10 is methodology, number 11 is experimental and design, and lastly the conclusion of this video. So, what is money laundering? Have you guys heard about money laundering? So, what I've learned throughout the research, money laundering basically a method, a ways so that the organization can conceal or hide their money, their funds, their specifically their illegal funds, their illegal money, or we call it dirty money, and they conceal them, they hide them to make it look like a legal and legitimate money. So we have three layers of these money laundering activities, which is the first one is placement. So let's say that organization receive money from selling drugs, from gambling, or even they receive bribe. That money will go through the next layer, which is layering, which is multiple transaction by so that making the transaction looks legitimate. Let's say they open a business, which is the business is selling uncertain items, so that when they receive the profit or the money from the business, it looks like a legitimate money. And lastly, with that profit or the money they receive from their business, that will go through integration layer, which is all of that money they will buy properties or even buy stocks for investment. So this activity is actually bad for the economy. Hence, a lot of financial institutions have tried a lot of methods and ways to prevent this activity. So next is the problem background. Usually, financial institution will use traditional rule-based or scenario-driven approaches to detect illicit transaction or these money laundering activities. How it works? So in the past, usually let's say Bank Negara Malaysia only detect this money laundering activity if there is a sudden money transfer, like lump sum, and only the big amount of money, let's say 25 billion, so suddenly transfer into a person called A. Then Bank Negara will alarm with that transaction. However, what if the money laundering activity transferred using small amount, like only 1,000? It looks like a normal transaction and it looks like a legal transaction. As you can see from the diagram in the right, that diagram, if there is no one report to Bank Negara Malaysia, let's say Mr. A doesn't report to Bank Negara Malaysia, or Mr. B or anyone outside the firm doesn't report this illegal activity to Bank Negara Malaysia, this case will look like a legal activities. However, it is actually money laundering activities, and this can lead to the firm to expose into legal consequences. Next is the research questions. So I have listed out three important questions here. So the first one is, what type of machine learning models are the most efficient at detecting various forms of money laundering activities? The second one is, how the money transaction can be modeled to identify the suspicious transaction of money laundering. And the lastly will be, what performance indicators can be applied to evaluate the suggested anti-money laundering model effectiveness. Next is the research objectives, and I have listed the three main objectives here. The first one is to investigate the machine learning techniques in suspicious transaction for anti-money laundering. The second one is to develop an anti-money laundering model to detect suspicious transaction based on machine learning techniques. And lastly is to evaluate the performance of the proposed anti-money laundering model based on the performance metrics. So next is the scopes. As we know, machine learning help humans because they are efficient techniques. So in this research, we want the machine learning potential because they can help in detecting and preventing money laundering. So this research also only focus on financial transaction data sets, and then that data sets only consist suspicious and non-suspicious, fraud and non-fraud. So we can help to train and then detect money laundering activities. Furthermore, this research aims is to use machine learning models because, as we know, machine learning model is really good as long as we train them. And then this machine learning can run a large data set transactions, and this can help financial institute to automate the detection of suspicious transaction and helps reducing the number of false positive and the unnecessary alerts. So when we use machine learning, we can prevent money laundering and also enhancing the financial system's reputation. So next is the contribution of this research. This research will improve the anti-money laundering detection capabilities. Next, these machine learning models will be more effective and reliable to detect the money laundering activities. The third one is to transform financial institution approach from traditional rule-based, from scenario-based to using machine learning in detection and prevention of money laundering operations. The fourth one is machine learning can help enabling better transparency and accountability to detect and money laundering activities. And lastly, this machine learning can help in automate the classification of suspicious transaction, even though the money laundering tactics is changing in the future. So we have come to the best part of this presentation, which is the proposed solution. So I have listed three main proposed solutions. The first one is to determine the most promising strategies for suspicious transaction identification based on the project's specific requirement. So the three machine learning that I have listed is artificial neural networks. The second one is support vector model, and the last one is random forest. All of these three will be explained truthfully after this. So the second proposed solution is to collect and pre-process a dataset of financial transaction to classify it as suspicious or not. So the dataset that I have chosen also have three. The first one is Kaggle, the second one is AML SIM, the third one is PaySip. So the third proposed solution is to evaluate each of the performance metrics for each machine learning model. So next, I'll be explaining about machine learning techniques in this research. which is I have chosen three, and the first one is artificial neural networks, ANN. ANN is actually a machine learning that a part of deep learning too, because it using few principles to to discover connectionism. The second one is support vector model, which is a straightforward model that classifies and divides linearly. And lastly is a random forest that using a progression and classification and go through each branch, each nodes quickly and randomly. So next is methodology for this research. We have been divided into three phases. The first phase is literature review, which is I have been through for the progress one to find past research papers, and then past study case to have better understanding in this research. And next is problem formulation, which is to identify the abnormalities, the patterns of money laundering. Next, in the second phase, we have data collection, which is we collect the raw data from the reliable sources such as Kaggle, and then we have AML SIM and PaySIM, which is we can generate our own data sets inside using them. And then we have feature engineering, which is we turn from raw data sets into statistical data set. Next, we have data pre-processing. Data pre-processing is where we balance the data. Let's say we have unbalanced data. Let's say the data have more into suspicious transaction. So we balance the data so that we have 50-50. This is to ensure the machine model learns balancedly, because we doesn't want the data to learn suspicious detection only, to ensure the model's accuracy. And then we have inside data pre-processing too, we have the terms called smooth or smoothen. This is what I mentioned before this. When the data set is unbalanced, this smooth and smoothen helps the unbalanced data to be balanced. And then lastly, we have tokenization, where this tokenization method change or convert the textual information into numerical data. Then we have model development and training. This is where we create a prototype machine learning and then train the prototype using the data sets. And lastly, we have hyperparameter tuning. We want the data sets, the output and the performance give the optimal results. Next, we have performance measurement. In this performance measurement, we have four, which is true, positive, true, negative, false, positive, false, negative calculation to count the accuracy, precision, F1 score, and etc. Not last, but we have result and discussion, where we compare the accuracy of each model. And then lastly is conclusion and recommendation for each model. Before I move into the conclusion, I will talk a little bit about the experimental and design. As you can see here, this is the snippet of PaySim dataset from Kaggle that I run in the Google Colab. But actually, to develop the prototype of the machine learning, we must use a Python programming language and edit it inside the Jupyter notebook. But I have encountered some issues, and hence I am using the Google Colab. So inside the codes, actually we'll be importing few libraries such as Seaborn, and then we have Matplotlib, and then we have scikit-learn, we have TensorFlow, and besides that we have NumPy and Panda as well. So I have run the data sets, and as you can see here, that is the outcome that I have managed to do so far. We have reached into the conclusion, and I have achieved the first objective, which is to study machine learning model for suspicious transaction detection for anti-money laundering. And as for the second and third goal, which an objective, will continue in the PSM2, which is to develop prototype for machine learning, and then the third objective is to evaluate the performance metrics of each machine learning models. And all I can say is I hope for the better improvement of myself, and I will put more effort of myself into this research. Thank you so much for listening from start until the end of this presentation. Have a nice day, everyone. Bye bye.